Cut the dang music. Just cut it. Let me make sure it actually stopped. Bing. What's up, everybody? Happy Saturday morning. Hope you guys have so far had a great week, a great start to the weekend. I've had an okay. I've had a good week, I should say, and a little bit of a rocky start to the weekend. But you know what, man? That's life. That's life. Let's talk about a couple things before we get to questions and get some folks in there. Happy Saturday. Hope you guys are great. Number one, DHT. Let's talk about this again. I am excited to popularize the notion, and it's like I've been looking at the insane asylum, which is the notion that DHT is only good when we're, in puberty, and that post-puberty serves no purpose except hair loss and prostate growth, which it doesn't. Estrogen is the main driver of prostate growth, as the studies confidently conclude. And, there's whole YouTube channels that are dedicated to disparaging DHT. And there's an entire medical establishment that is also dedicated to, giving folks products that block it, for their profit. But as a TRT coach, it's like, I just don't think... Did they not expect like TRT coaches, like people that are working specifically with men that are on TRT and men that are on TRT that monitor their own labs and discover that DHT is like fucking everything? Yes, it can contribute to hair loss if in excess. It can. That's just it. And if you got that gene, man, if genetically you're really susceptible to hair loss, then you have to make the decision, if you're on TRT, it's your junk or your hair. You have to make that decision. But like DHT is such a critical integral. It is everything. It is everything. Now, estrogen needs to be in range, as I've harped on 1,000 times and I'll continue to harp on. In your range, but usually in range. Just right around Quest's top of the range, 29 or so. Some folks need to be at fucking 20, though. I want to make that clear. Some people on TRT are not going to get great erections, great libido, unless their estrogen at 20. There's just differences between folks where they need a little bit lower estrogen. And then some folks can tolerate a little higher estrogen, but still within range. That's just the recipe for everything. But to leave DHT out of it, you can selectively lower your DHT with dutasteride, finasteride, curcumin at large doses, but keep estrogen in range if you're on TRT, and you're going to notice a decrease in sexual function. The rigidity of the penis, rigidity of your erections, a decrease in primal libido. In some cases, it just goes away completely. Meanwhile, DHT is sitting at 45 or 50, kind of mid-range. What does that tell you? That hormone, it's what makes us men. And how could a hormone make us masculine and our voice deepen and give us, male characteristics, but not be responsible for our attraction to women, for their femininity? How? What do folks think? Estrogen is what drives our attraction to women? That's a good question. Let's just break that down regarding DHT and primal libido. Which is it? Testosterone contributes to protein synthesis, metabolic upgrades, etc., better cardiac function, endurance. Then you have DHT, and then you have estrogen. Which of those hormones, DHT and estrogen, is contributing to your drive for the estrogenic nature of femininity in women? Is it estrogen? Oh, of course it's not. Like, I feel like when I'm telling people, look, you got to get your DHT up and you got to get estrogen in range, but mainly focus on the DHT, to the extent that, erections, libido are crazy and you don't have hair loss to some catastrophic degree, that when people listen to it and start executing it and getting results, it's like folks are coming out of the insane asylum. Like they've been in the insane asylum for so long, listening to crazy talk about DHT isn't necessary and let your estrogen go. What the fuck are these people trying to do? Feminize men? Those of you conspiracy theorists would be like, yes, they are trying to. I don't quite go that far into the deep end there, but it just you have to think of it that way. DHT and estrogen. Which of those makes you attracted to the estrogenic nature of females? The predominantly male hormone that deepens your voice and gives you facial hair and makes your erections work, or the female hormone that, normally dominates a female's hormone profile and doesn't dominate ours because ours is dominated by androgens. Just wake the fuck up, some folks. I know you guys get it, but some folks don't get it. Let's talk about fixing libido on TRT. Listen, libido is a DHT-centric thing, and primarily through dopamine receptors in the brain and androgen receptor binding in the hypothalamus and the limbic system. DHT drives that. You take anybody who's got estrogen in a great place, but whose DHT isn't particularly high and the libido is just not super great, but estrogen's sitting like 27, 30 or so, and add a little bit, just not a lot. You really don't need a lot of exogenous DHT, like the 20% stuff on Source List or, whatever DHT that you might, injectable DHT people are getting out there on the underground. And watch your libido for women upgrade into an aggressive animalistic like libido. Libido problems on TRT are not hard to solve. Erection problems on TRT are not hard to solve. It is the same stuff that I have been talking about. What's hard and what makes it a science is you don't know how your body's going to respond to particular esters, and particular doses. Some people can dose 150 of cypionate. They inject twice a week. They inject 300 IU twice a week of HCG, and their body metabolizes that testosterone in a great way. They get high DHT and estrogen falls at like 30, right? Some people do that. Other people do not. They clear the test quick. The DHT doesn't peak enough. The estrogen you're over converting to estrogen. With cream, yeah, it is the best test modality in my opinion for sexual function and for everything basically, but sometimes people have a hard time dialing cream in too. Particularly because there's really bad advice about, starting the higher concentration stuff. If folks are so anti-cookie cutter protocol, then why the fuck are you listening to the cookie cutter 200 milligram per milliliter cream suggestions? 2 pumps in the morning, 2 pumps in the evening. You do not want steady state, gentlemen. You want to peak and a trough like you do when you're natural. You wake up in the morning, androgens peak. You start troughing toward the end of the night. Estrogen doesn't continue to accumulate thus. You wake up the next morning, you're in a lower estrogenic state while still having enough DHT, you peak again. That's how it's supposed to be. Anyway, hope that all makes sense. Guys, as I described on the live stream yesterday, there is an entire new roster of coaching and digital products that are going to be launching for the new year. The coaching prices and the coaching options are changing, and they will take effect this week. So I've already got some of the stuff drafted, and then we'll go and actually publish and finalize the new coaching prices, the new coaching breakdown, the new coaching options. So please look at that. But right now, everything's the same through the rest of the weekend. We've had a great run with Cyber Week and the 50% discount, and that ends Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. So I'm going to keep that on the screen for you folks. This is the last chance to get cheap product. There's still going to be discounts on, the new coaching options and the whole new structure and all that. You can always get discounts if you email me. And if you want a discount, you can always just email me. And if it means getting you on board, we'll get you a discount. But right now, you got a day and a half, 2 days to take advantage of that. Good morning. Morning, David. Game Changer channel. Ryan, I love topicals, but how about toxic component form when solvent and creams will mess up your endocrine system? That's not something that I think you should. That is a problem. Yeah, I never really have had to contend with that being an issue in any way. I think it is. You have a theory about that, and sure, there may be some degree of. I wouldn't call it toxicity. I think your body would just sort of metabolize whatever foreign agents might be in hormone creams that your body doesn't like. But no, I have no evidence to support this idea whatsoever. And listen, if you are using topicals to manage your hormones, you are superficially, like anybody on exogenous hormones, managing your hormones. So the endocrine system, therefore, is being managed by you. You're putting the DHT in, the test in, you're managing the estradiol. That is all up to you. So, some hypothetical agent in test cream, as an example, is not going to mess with what you are establishing via manufacturing your hormone protocol with exogenous hormones. Dream Stage Chaser. These are my peaks and troughs. What do I think? 16 milligrams daily test prop. Okay. Total T is 700 to 1400. So you're running it first. You're running peak and that's peak and trough. Free T 100 to 125, E2 20 to 40, DHT 25 to 30. That's a little low. Master on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because I have low DHT from less 5-AR. Did you take 5-AR blockers? Why do you have less conversion? Because that is less conversion there, and it's entirely possible the Master on is binding to the ARs and somehow diluting your serum DHT. I don't know if that happens, but I guess it's entirely possible. I think this is largely okay here. Because I mean, you're dosing 75 milligrams Master on a week, and the E2 is in a great place. With 1,400 tests at peak, yeah, that's going to aromatize a lot. It's going to aromatize a lot, but it won't stay that way because again, on trough you're at 700. What I think about this is that it looks like you kind of maybe slightly over aromatize, but you definitely under convert to DHT. Right? If it's not going above that, that could be a problem. At the same time, with prop, because it's in and out of the system so quickly, it might not have enough to adequately build up a lot of DHT. I mean, that is entirely possible. 16 milligrams a day of test prop wouldn't give me enough DHT, but people respond differently to different testosterone esters. I need 25 milligrams a day to be baseline with prop, below which I feel like I'm androgen deficient. So I mean, it could be that it's just peak and trough and too quick kind of thing. Yeah, test prop is a wonderful ester, but it isn't necessarily for everyone. You've got to find which ester really agrees with your body the most. For me, it's 100% cream. I can dial it on cypionate in various doses, 70 every fourth day, 200 with Aromacin, 200 a week once injected with Aromacin and HCG on day 2. 119 milligrams a week, 98 milligrams a week with a pump of cream. You could dial in on all kinds of shit, but for me, honestly, cream jives with my body the best. Yeah. What type of cream and dose am I on? I'm on 100 milligram cream, 5 pumps a day, 3 on the forearm and the bicep, 2 on the scrotum in the morning. The reason I did that is because on 5 on the scrotum, when I was dialed in there, I had some diffuse hair thinning and my hair is still trying to recover from that. And so I just changed up the sites a little bit and reduced the HCG, because if you change the sites and put more on your forearm, it's more estrogenic, right? Less conversion to DHT via less on the testicles. So I had to lower the HCG dose from 330 a day to 166 IU a day. And now I'm dialed in. And my hair is starting to recover. But I had built up a fucking motherload of DHT from just 5 on the scrotum. And, that's why I had to recently change it. In the end, interestingly, I'm slightly more dialed in than I was. Feeling fucking great, though. You don't answer your chat when it's not moving at all. I answer the chat all the time in every question. Now, I've gotten to your question, haven't I? It's just that I might be talking about other stuff before. Brother. Arbazra, is there a reason test cream makes me anxious and feel cranked up? Now, this can happen. 2 pumps every morning, 70 milligrams. 1 pump was 37.5. It's probably just a quick peak, and this is something that will go away. Yeah, this is something that will go away. When I first used cream, I think I remember talking to Dave Lee about this on my podcast when I had Dave on for the first time, talking about overstimulation from cream. Hey, brother, you are peaking in DHT in 6 hours, and you're peaking on testosterone in same amount of time, but you start peaking within a half an hour. Your test just goes, higher than it would as a natty, although you do peak in the morning and trough at night as a natty, but this is different. It can definitely just do that. I think that a lot of that is central nervous system tone stimulatory effects from peaking androgens. I mean, these things affect neurotransmitters, mainly dopamine, but who knows? Maybe they're affecting acetylcholine, probably glutamate, inhibiting GABA to some extent. It hasn't really been studied, so it's up in the air, but for sure this can happen. At the same time, though, I mean, this is a low dose of cream, but just say you're a hyper responder to cream. I mean, where are your total numbers here? Where's your total test? Where's your estradiol? You might just be peaking far too fucking high. In which case you're just going to feel like that. Even then, so you'll get used to it. I felt pretty wacky on 200 milligrams a week at one point. And then as my body got used to shit, and then I went on a cycle last summer of 500 a week of testosterone, I felt great. I felt fine. I had no side effects at all, except for libido problems, which I had to cure with aromacin. Simon, you have just said you need a peak and a trough for testosterone and not steady state. Is that rule only for non-PFS or PAS stuff? What is PAS? PAS sufferers? It is just generally better for you to have that. But the golden rule still applies. The reason that that's so useful is so that people don't over-aromatize. People on cypionate, if they're... body is not responding to that ester in a way which keeps the metabolites in a tight band that actually is in a great ratio, high DHT, estrogen in range, then they should go on a protocol that peaks and troughs so that estrogen doesn't stay steady state and therefore can't accumulate. It'll just drop because your body starts filtering estrogen out of the system. It's always doing that, but if you have no break from aromatization, the estrogen tends to accumulate. So that's the point at which folks in that situation have to change to peaking and troughing. And cream is honestly the best bet in those cases, Simon. Good morning, brother. Our Basra, I always feel long esters make me more stable. Well, of course. I mean, it's steady state androgens, it's constant androgens. You'll hear this a lot. People will have dick and libido problems on cypionate at higher doses, but they feel phenomenal and they're anabolic as fuck. Of course, that's what happens. But that's not TRT. That's not how you do TRT. It's just obviously a bad outcome. When I've tried test prop 20 a day or test cream 70 milligrams every morning, I start stuttering. I also don't want to talk too much. What? Also don't want to talk too much when on fast esters. Okay, well, stuttering is not a common side effect of any testosterone, my brother. So, I mean, it's probably a combo of a you problem versus, as well as the stimulation from the test, the fast-acting stuff. But, where are your bloods going on 20 milligrams test daily? I had a guy that I worked with where 15 milligrams of test prop a day took him above 1,500. So he had ran the test, which doesn't show where it goes above 15. It just says above 1,500. So some people respond fucking crazy. It's 100 milligram cream. It's 100 milligram per milliliter of cream. Tonic, that name. Can I use prop and cream? Yes, you can. Why sometimes when I take the needle out after the injection and blood comes out, I'm feeling off the next 10 to 15 days? That's a weird one. I mean, you probably just should switch to cream or something and stop doing injections because you're responding weirdly to something. Are you piercing blood vessels? Is it going where it's not supposed to go? Are you doing fucking sub-Q? Are you having test flu in response to the injection? What is the dose? What is the frequency? You gotta be clear about those things, and then I think I can at least answer your question. But yeah, you can use prop and cream. You can use prop or cream or both. A good hybrid protocol for cream and prop would be dominantly cream, 4 to 5 pumps of the 100 milligram stuff, and then 5 to 10 milligrams of prop every day, every other day, or every third day, depending on how you aromatize and how you're able to dial in. And then you get the steady baseline from cream, which still peaks and troughs, and then you get like this additional infusion without super over heavy aromatizing. And those are the kinds of hybrid protocols that really work well for people. I love hybrids. I honestly love them. Spartan, dude, thank you for the super chat, brother. I missed this. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Brother, good morning. Brother. Yeah, we got that question answered. Any other questions, brothers? Dream Chaser, Master on P daily with test prop daily. I reintroduced my insomnia, fragmented sleep, so I needed to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday to have more of a trough to help sleep. I think I have a threshold for androgens. Yeah, I think you continue to say that, but I don't think so. So you reintroduced the Master on P? Try to frame that question like with more context, like really clearly, so that a Labrador can understand it. Because I've got a lot of questions here, and I can't quite understand what you're asking. Off my rocker. You got to put these guys on a DHT enanthate prop from 5AR Society. All right, no names, no sources here. All right, so do that again. I'll have to ban you temporarily, so please don't do that. Simon, PS is post-Accutane. Okay, yeah. I only asked about the peaks and troughs because you have me on steady state test E daily dose. Just wondered if that's better for PS. PFS, PAS suffers. My brain is dyslexic on PAS, but post-Accutane to me is kind of grouped into the same categories as DHT blocking. As I explained, like I said, Simon, if you can't get estrogen in range on a long ester, and by the way, if you're doing daily injections of test enanthate, you're not at steady state. You still peak and trough. You peak that day and you start troughing at nighttime on a lower end dose of that. But if you can't get the estrogen to stay in range while having enough DHT, that's where you need the peaks and troughs. And regarding PFS and Accutane, DHT blocking syndromes, you generally do want to just use test cream. If I could say to folks, like these days, I'm not even really wasting time with long esters unless someone has the preference or they've been on a long ester. And it would take us 4 weeks or 5 weeks to get that long ester out of the system. And we try to dial it in. If we can't, we also have to determine with PFS people, do they over aromatize? That is the core problem at the point at which they were taking finasteride, right? Because that's what it does. But are they still doing that? Some people that have PFS, they're not over aromatizing anymore. And they're not necessarily under converting to DHT. They just need a dialed in TRT protocol, and then they ride off into the sunset, and they're good. But for those that doesn't apply, you've got to use a DHT centric testosterone modality, which would be cream. Yeah, that cream is just honestly fucking awesome. Marlon, how many days before having sex should I take cabergoline? Do you still use cabergoline sometimes? Do you change your mind on it? Well, I've not changed my mind on it. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Yeah, I did it as an experiment to reduce my prolactin to 1.7 or something. And yeah, the refractory period was basically non-existent. It did certainly help basically every factor of sexual function because I was suppressing prolactin very fucking heavily. But my take on cabergoline is still the same. You would have to be dosing cumulatively 200 to 300 milligrams to run into cardiac problems, valvulopathy specifically. So, the notion that cabergoline is dangerous is wrong until you get to the point where you have cumulative doses of lots of fucking doses. And if you're just trying to reduce your prolactin as a TRT crusader, you're not going to reach nearly that cumulative amount. So you wouldn't have, cardiac problems. It's a generally safe drug to take, but, people taking it for Parkinson's or pituitary tumors, and they have to take it at, 2 milligrams a week for years and years, they can run into fucking cardiac valve problems. DHT esters, thoughts? Not a whole lot. Honestly, DHT transdermal gel is what I prefer. El Basra, our Basra. Steady state makes people feel great is true. I feel great on 20 milligrams test C daily, but libido is 0. So this is a perfect example of exactly what I have been harping on for like years now. Can Proviron help with libido on that dose? My E2 is 60 on this dose. Well, the reason you have no libido is your E2 is 60. That is just it. Now, Proviron, you'd have to dose 50 to 70 milligrams a day, which is probably going to come with hair loss and some side effects to budge that estradiol. A milligram of Aromacin, that's a low dose. You might try to dose that 3-4 times a week and get that estradiol down to 30, and then you should be fine, assuming that 20 milligrams of Test C is giving you enough DHT, but it might not be. If it isn't, you won't get resolution of your libido problem because the DHT needs to be high. You've got to have that DHT up there and have estrogen in range. So yeah, I mean, guys, this is a great case in point. 20 milligrams Test C daily. Okay. It's a mere 140 milligrams a week. Now, are you dosing HCG, by the way? I assume you are, because if your E2 is 60 on that and you're not dosing HCG, you are an over aromatizer. Yeah, so you've got to address that, whether it's body fat, booze, pot, otherwise, thyroid issues, liver detox issues. Because on 140 a test doing daily injections, your fucking E2 should be 20, not 60. So you might be, dosing HCG, and that's why it's 60. If not, you are an over aromatizer, dude, and you've got to get to the bottom of that. You should just switch to cream. You can try the Proviron, but you're going to have to dose 50 to 75 milligrams a day. Otherwise, I would move to cream. What's the difference between treating PFS, PSSD with androgens, or is it the same protocol? Largely the same. I mean, both of these are just endocrine systems that are endocrine problems that are fixed via high DHT, in-range estradiol, functional testicles, and some DHEA. That's largely how they're fixed, but dialing in the numbers takes time because people respond differently to every modality of testosterone. That, like one person will be fine on 5 pumps of 100 milligram cream, and another it'll take their test to 1700 and their E2 to 70. So they've got to dose far less, and we've got to manipulate the HCG dose to make it work. So that's really where, the short strokes come into play, or the work comes into play, because there's no protocol that, applies to everyone in any situation. But yes, it is largely the same. I haven't worked with a PSSD person in a really long time. Those folks tend to just do fine on TRT, and they don't have as difficult of a problem with conversion to metabolites as the people that have taken actual DHT blockers. Is there any difference between Masteron and DHT effects on libido estrogen? Yes. Masteron blocks the receptors, as evidenced by the fact that it was used for treating breast cancer. DHT blocks the gene expression of estrogen, but doesn't really stop estrogen from binding to the receptor. It will still latch on and attempt to agonize the receptor. It effectively does bind to it. But then the gene expression thereafter, which gives you the estrogen effects, are terminated via DHT. DHT is itself also acts to reduce the gene that encodes the aromatase enzymes. So it, by nature of that, it makes you make a little bit less aromatase enzymes, which would yield a little bit less estradiol. I can tell you this, that both of them can have a profound aromatase inhibitor-like effect. Yeah, I mean, if you get the 20% DHT gel on any dose of test and you load it up a few drops to 5 drops a day of the 20% stuff on the scrotum, you're going to have so much DHT that it's at some point going to feel like you're taking Arimidex. Your libido is going to take a shit and you will have low estrogen symptoms because that shit can absolutely do it. The right amount of DHT with the right amount of estrogen is superb. That's why TRT is a science. I had a bunch of folks arguing with me about coaching recently on, the video that we did yesterday. If you're stupid enough to not figure out TRT on your own, you're a fucking idiot. Just asshole disparaging people in the fucking comments. It's like, hey, asshole, why are you being a fucking asshole? TRT is hard for people because of this kind of stuff, man. Getting the balance straight is not an easy endeavor for a lot of folks. Yeah, you ever peruse the TRT help forums? They're fucking loaded with people that are having problems for this reason. Just as an aside, if folks are going to put disparaging shit in the comment section, I'm not one of those people that tries to suppress, people countering what I say and shit. But just don't be a fucking jerk off for no goddamn reason. Try to know what you don't know. I was having people question the coaching, none of it is worth it. Listen, there are plenty of other coaches out there that have far less experience, that work with a lot less men, that you can pay less to ultimately get you less results. If people are having issues with pricing, I do not want those kind of clients. My clients are primarily business folks who see a problem. I have ED, libido problems on TRT. I cannot get dialed in, and I need to solve it. Not everyone's like that. I understand. So, I go somewhere else. Anyway, I don't know where I got on that tangent, but to say that this shit is a lot harder just because someone, it seems easy. There are people that just inject 100 milligrams twice a week and they're dialed in. That's not the majority of people. You got fucking lucky if you're that guy. Dream Chaser, I was low on DHT, so Masteron helps me get my sex drive back. But when I did it, it fragmented my sleep. Okay, I get it. I have a threshold that gets triggered, so I'm going to try Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I don't have any advice for you without looking at your entire protocol. And this is something you should super chat, bro. Super chat $50 or something. Break the whole thing down, and we'll break it down. Your sleep gets fragmented probably because of the blocking of estrogen receptors. It means you're just on the wrong protocol. I mean, you're just on the wrong protocol. Yes, it gives you your sex drive back, but that doesn't mean that's the right protocol for you. Obviously, the side effect of having fragmented sleep is unsustainable. Arbazra, no, I'm not on HCG. I think I'm just a high aromatizer. So this guy's at 60 estradiol on 140 a test, done in 20 milligram daily injections. That is over aromatizer. 6'4", healthy, slim, and do gym 4 times a week. If I'm a high aromatizer with a 1 milligram aromacin on hand, should I try to dial in with Test C or cream? I would use cream. I would run to the clinic and get cream right now. You are converting too much of your testosterone cypionate into estrogen, and this is never going to serve you. You're going to have to go down to 100 milligrams a week or 80 milligrams a week of cypionate to get that estrogen in range. This is not good. Go on cream. Any insight into nicotine? 2 milligram pouches can decrease blood flow or lower EQ. Yeah, I mean, it's a vasoconstrictor, but you'd have to be equivalent to a pipe smoker to get enough nicotine to start inhibiting erection quality. Yeah, like one of those the pipe tobacco smokers, because that just saturates your shit quickly. Otherwise, no, you are not going to have blood flow or erection problems with nicotine. Now, you will find in the quitting smoking subreddits and in the vape subreddits that, people will cease the usage of nicotine and suddenly they get their erection quality back, which tells us that they have hormonal problems, which the nicotine was just adding an extra layer onto it, and they started getting better erections after they reduced the nicotine. And, chances are they have a shitty lifestyle otherwise, so maybe they have some blood flow problems. But no, a healthy person with a great hormone protocol, nicotine is not going to inhibit your erections. Dangerwood, you helped me fix PSSD several years ago with about 90% with high-dose St. John's wort, cordyceps, and Cyston. Just want to say thank you. I want testosterone HCG to fix the last 10%. That's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, back then, it's like nobody knew a whole lot, but I was the only one that recognized, like, this is a hormonal problem. And Cyston is testosterone-inducing, cordyceps is dopamine D2 receptor optimizing, a degree of testosterone optimization, and SJW does some pretty cool shit regarding hormones too. But ultimately, you're on a much better track with testing HCG. Focus on getting high DHT and estrogen in range, dude. I've got cream on hand, but it's 150. Okay, that's not bad. That's in between, but you want to get 100 milligrams. Yes, no, I just get 100 milligrams. It's just the way that you can adjust in small increments the best. You want to be able to make small adjustments. And, the higher concentration stuff just tends to make it a lot harder to dial in. If you can control things to the finest extent possible, that is obviously better, right? Just in small increments. You want the 100 milligram stuff. Marlon, does overstimulation from high test doses come from the androgens or the estrogens? I think it is both. Yeah, I think it's the central nervous system drive and tone that turns up from both of them. But what typically tends to happen is if folks aren't used to a lot of estrogen, and this typically tends to come with steady state long esters where they never get a break from aromatization, it makes them crazy. It disrupts their sleep. It increases their fucking heart rate. It just generally makes them wired a lot, which can cause sleep problems. But all the effects, usually all the effects from androgens that, might seem like they're, contributing, they're creating like an excessive caffeine-like effect, tend to just go away, over time. If I use test prop, I use mass prop on the following day, or same day use best. You probably want to use it the same day, because I mean they're close to the same half-life. So as that estrogen is peaking on day one of injection of prop, if you're using Masteron to try to control that, then you want to inject it on the same day. But just don't overuse it, because it works as an AI. I mean, it works in a similar way. Levi, hey Ryan, how do I deal with physical anxiety bouts when taking TRT, like heart racing, even at 20 milligrams every day? You're probably on a long ester. You should switch to something like proper cream, but cream would be the answer there, and find the right dose where estrogen is in range and DHT is pretty high, and that should go away. At the same time, again, like as I've been explaining, some people will go on TRT, and the male body is not used to, or necessarily built for. We just have to superficially make it work. Exogenous hormones. So when you introduce exogenous hormones, it's a shocker to your central nervous system, and it can fucking overstimulate you, whether it's making a lot of dopamine or it's just making more ATP. It's facilitating energy production in your cells. It does a lot of really cool shit, but which could make you feel wired. It will go away. It will go away is the answer. But 20 milligrams every day of cypionate, cypionate just comes with fucking side effects sometimes, whereas in equivalent dose of a different ester won't, or a different test modality like cream won't do that. And if it does, you just got to get used to it. I mean, look at your metabolites first. If DHT is going far too high, that could be the cause, but it's usually estrogen going too high, and that being not a good protocol. Doesn't cream really risk your hair? It can. Yes, cream, there's just no question. Like, it's proven in the literature, but you should see the blood work that I see, including my own, with DHT on cream. It's fucking sky high, dude. When I was rubbing 5 on the scrotum, I had diffuse hair thinning, and my hair is kind of still recovering from it. I still have my hair, and it's not like falling out anymore, but it was when I was running just straight cream, just loading it on the scrotum every day. And that was, modest dose, 100 milligram cream, 5 pumps. It can. So, I mean, you just change the concentration, put some on the forearms, some on the testicles. It comes back to TRT as a science. You've got to find out what works for you. Is it enough to get you enough DHT while still keeping estrogen in your sweet spot, but not causing hair loss? You've got to find those doses, man, and make it work. On cream, will that feeling cranked out fade away over time? I only seem to last a few days on cream. As my chest feels tight, anxiety feel, and I'm wired. Am I stopping too early? Cream hits hard. You don't have the right dose. Number one, you're probably stopping too early, but number two, the right TRT protocol has no side effects, and your dick works great, and your libido is great, and your sensation's great, and you wake up with boners, and you're strong at the gym, and you feel good all day. That's the right TRT dose. So you've got to find that. But again, I don't know how early you are. There's just stuff like this overstimulation crap that just happens no matter what when you're new to TRT. It can happen within the first 6 months. It can happen up to a year. Yes, it's going to go away, but you've got to get on the right dose. Cream does hit hard. When you're used to it and you're dialed in, you notice the energy right away. I wake up and I feel fine, but I don't feel my best because I'm troughing in the morning. And then, I apply hormones, inject HCG, take a, myriad of supplements, and drink some coffee, and then it's game time. So cream does hit hard. Marlon, did androgen receptors down or upregulate like neurotransmitters? If yes, how? Essentially, here's the thing. First of all, I think people think about that wrong. You don't have a set number of androgen receptors that like stay constant and then downregulate and upregulate and whatever. Your body constantly degrades and makes new androgen receptors over the course of weeks and months. So it doesn't quite work like that. Testosterone itself tends to upregulate androgen receptors, meaning create more of them. It tends to create more of them the higher the doses you go. The only thing that downregulates, potentially, androgen receptors is less androgens. It's not the biggest problem or even a major problem in the PFS folks. But if you've been starved to DHT, you're going to have less androgen receptors. Yeah. So you've got to go make your body make more and start recycling more and then thus continually producing more. You do that with androgens. Mark is worried about his hair on cream. Again, you've just got to find the right application sites. The scrotum will give you so much DHT. And in a lot of cases, you don't need as much DHT as scrotal application will give you. You don't need that much DHT for fucking killer erections and great libido and good sensation. You just need, high end of the range or slightly super physiologic. That's what you need. So it's like, again, as in my case, if you just put a certain degree of clicks or pumps, I use them interchangeably, on somewhere else on your body, preferably the forearm. It's a great absorption site. I put 3 on the forearm and in the bicep, and I have no hair on my bicep, but I'm Italian and French, so I've got hair fucking everywhere else. And it absorbs and it's fine. But then 2 on the scrotum. So I get enough DHT, estrogen's still in range, and I don't, my hair is in a healthy place. And so you just have to modify it. TRT, whatever ester you're on, it's about making little changes to dial in the hormone protocol for it to work for you. That's what I've built a career doing for people. Your hair seems super thin. Isn't that because of the cream? Seems like you don't warn people enough about the hair loss. I just fucking talked about it. I've been talking about for a month straight here and there that like strict scrotal cream for me started diffuse thinning my hair. So does Proviron. So does DHT. I've used a lot of DHT too, over the last year, just kind of on and off and shit. Warn people. I started off this video saying, in some cases, it's your dick or your hair. I just don't make statements unless you have the whole picture. Go watch 50 hours of my content. Dude, I've talked about it. Yes, DHT via reducing subcutaneous tissue in your scalp, thereby creating less of a healthy buffer for hair follicles, can impair the health of your hair. That we know that it does that. We know that it does that. But that doesn't mean on TRT you're going to lose your fucking hair. Plenty of guys on TRT have a full head of hair, me included, and everybody that I know included, with the exception of a few clients here and there who, that ship sailed, and when they got on TRT, they had a lot of DHT, and, they had genes to lose hair, and it just accelerated it. My hair has thinned over the years from lots of shit, man. Proviron, DHT use, the cycle, it recovers in between, and that's just that, but I'm never going to fucking lose my hair. I have to shave it or anything like that. My hair grows fucking quick still. I just got a haircut a week and a half ago, and I got to go get another one. If anyone's getting on TRT and still want their hair to be intact, it's not going to happen, brothers. No, it fucking is. Guys. I would say this statement. If you're a PFS person, which means you'd gotten on finasteride because you have pretty bad hair genes, and so you had fucking Norwood 6 or whatever when you were 24 years old, and then you went on finasteride and it broke your dick and it broke your libido, those people have to make the decision, it's my dick or my hair. And yeah, getting on androgens, if you're already predisposed to losing lots of hair, is definitely going to make you lose hair, or at least have some thinning. You still have hair, but it's thin. Them just the breaks. Them's just the breaks, brother. No, the cancer tumor concerns are not a real risk. I used to study dihexa a lot. Back in the nootropics coaching days, a lot of folks that I dealt with used dihexa. I'm still in contact with a good degree of them, and none of them have cancer. Yeah, your hair's going to be perfect on cypionate, but will your libido and will your erections? Sometimes on TRT, you do have to make that decision. Will I be okay with a little bit of diffuse hair thinning? And, maybe you have to get a crew cut, or maybe your hair ends up kind of a little shorter, but you don't lose it. But you got ragers every morning, and your libido's fucking high, and you're masculine as fuck, and you feel great. Yes, that's the nature of androgens. That's just the nature of it, man. Look at bodybuilders. They that ship has sailed, bro, for all of them. Marlon, I'd rather have high DHT, bald and masculine, than having hair and be feminine. Absolutely. I mean, that's another point, question you've got to rise to yourself too. Would I rather be fucking feminine, which no male should ever want to be, and have ED or not great erections, have to rely on PD5 inhibitors for fucking sex? Sometimes they don't work. Be a male and have no libido or not a high libido. You know how satisfying it is to even if you have your girl around you, you just want to have sex with her most of the time. If you're in a bad mood or something's going on with life or whatever, yeah, everybody's excused in that case. And if you're not, you want to masturbate or something like that. That's how it should be. It's part of our fucking drive, dude. Go read old school success books written by people like Napoleon Hill, who studied rich people and wrote books about them, how they think. That, you know, having a high sex drive is a good, healthy thing for a male. And that you can harness that to be productive in life. Do I suggest any supplements to reduce anxiety while on TRT? I'm on Prop 20 milligrams every day. The only thing you can take while you're in the transient phase of dialing in, or the transient phase of just over-responding in terms of central nervous system stimulation from androgens, low-dose L-theanine, 200 milligrams, 300 milligrams a day might work. Plank Road, I moved my protocols all over, but I have extreme anxiety disorder and PTSD. So I know even if my hormones are perfect, my libido will be all over the place. Do you recommend beta blockers? No, I don't. No, I do not. Yeah, I mean, to an extent, you know, anxiety and shit can affect libido, but I just keep coming back to what I've seen. And like, people can be under extreme duress, but their sex drive is still great because they have a good hormone protocol, you know? I have PTSD too, man. But, you know, I try not to think about some of the events in Iraq that took place where it happened. Like, the worst event was when we lost a guy named Sergeant Harper, Staff Sergeant Harper, Marlon Harper. You can Google this and Google the event. It was on MSNBC. Our lieutenant, my platoon leader, who was also injured, talked about it publicly. Yeah, that was like one of the worst days, you know, and I have a lot of fuck up. It's like, but I don't picture it in my head, and I haven't since. When it tries to come up, I don't think about it. Because it will fuck you up. It will fuck you up, man. You know, seeing maimed people, it can fuck you up. You know, you're responsible for your. I'm not trying to say that, you know, your situation mentally is not severe or whatever, but you got to be strong, brother. You're in control of yourself, and it's up to you. No one's going to help your PTSD. No one is going to make you, you know, rationalize the situation differently or better. You just got to fucking accept it, man. You just got to accept it. When I was 15 years old, I saw my dead dad in his at his wake in a fucking casket. Yeah, it's fucked up. It's fucked up. You know, I watched people die in Iraq. Some close friends. It's fucked up. And it wasn't like they died peacefully in their sleep. It's fucking brutal, violent deaths, dude. It's fucked up. It's fucked up, but it can ruin you or it could make you stronger, man. Life can be dark. Good luck. Big Z Baller, what's good, Ryan? Love the content, brother. I'm on 3 pumps, 100 milligrams cream. 100 IUs HCG. Haven't gotten labs. I don't feel great at all being at this lower dose. My speculation could be low too. And low androgens. Yeah, that's too low of a dose. I would go to 5 pumps. That's the baseline where you should start. Unless at 5 pumps you were over converting to estrogen, or, you know, your total T was like 1700 at peak or something. But maybe in the middle is where you should be. Maybe 4 pumps. Like if you had reduced from 5 pumps to 3 and now you're feeling like low androgen symptoms, maybe give it time, because when you reduce your dose, your body does feel like it's in an androgen deficient state for a brief period of time, because you got a bunch of ARs not being bound to that had just developed through a higher dose called upregulation, right? So that's got to balance out over time, and it will. Every time I've reduced a dose, like, you know, when I was on cycle, I reduced it to 300. I felt a little wacky, but then the reduction from 300 to ultimately 120, I felt androgen deficient for like 2 weeks. And then I felt great again. So it's one of those two things. Dream Chaser needs less HCG on prop. Needed 500 IA 2 times a week on test SIP. Yeah, Cypionate is much more suppressive. It just is, right? There's a study on this that shows us like the fast-acting testosterone is less suppressive to the testicular axis, the HPTA. And that would make sense because it doesn't stick around. Cypionate is the most suppressive. I would say like Libido is probably the most suppressive, but we don't really use that much here in the States. So Cypionate is pretty fucking suppressive, dude. Or Basra, when should libido kick back in on test cream? What signs should I look out for if the dose is too low or too high? The hallmark sign of too low of a dose is you just feel like your energy is fucking shot. You feel like your energy is shot, you know? That's too low of a dose. You're androgen deficient, basically, at that point. You know? I mean, you're sitting at 400, 500 total tests. That's close to androgen deficient. And that's kind of, if you get to those numbers on TRT, you're going to feel androgen deficient. So those are the signs that it's too low. Too high, you over-aromatize, you lose your erections, you lose your libido, you lose sensation. When your dick starts going numb, you're on too high of a dose. You can be on high doses, but you must use an AI or you must use a DHT derivative or DHT itself to manage the estrogen. That's just it. That's just it. You know, that hasn't changed. I know there's been a bunch of, you know, internet people that have said like estrogen's cardioprotective and, you know, protective of your joints, all of which is true. In no way does that prove or you know, in no way does that prove or mean that you should never manage it. You know, you've got to manage it. So those are things that happen. Too high of a dose if you're not managing estrogen with another drug. Erections will fail. Libido will be hit or miss, potentially fail. Sensation in your penis is going to be low. Estrogen tends to block the effects of DHT. So, I mean, DHT optimizing the sensory nerve endings and the smooth lining of the blood vessels in the penis is what makes you have sensation, along with the complex kind of neural interplay that the pudendal nerve has with your brain. So it's complex, but those are the things that start to fucking happen. You know, with TRT, it's very simple. It's like, you know, if you can tolerate high doses of tests, meaning you don't have high hematocrit and, you know, sleeplessness and otherwise problems, lipid problems or whatever, and you can use an AI and you tolerate them fine, no joint pain, no libido loss, no otherwise mood side effects, then that's what you should do. That's what you should do. You know, take 200 milligrams of cypionate a week, take an AI, 0.5 of Arimidex the day after injection, 500 IU HCG the day after injection, or 700. Then you're good. If you can't, though, deal with AIs or DHT derivatives, you've got to reduce your test dose. You got to reduce your test dose and go down, while still keeping DHT high, which becomes not a conundrum, but a challenge, because the lower the test dose, the lower the DHT is going to be, but keeping estrogen in range. This is where exogenous DHT comes in and helps people in those cases, and this is where cream helps people. You are welcome. And listen, I didn't do it for you guys, though. I'm honest. I did it for me. I did it for me at 18. I was fucking smoking weed every day and drinking 40s like in the hood in Allentown, PA. Eastern Allentown, you know? And I was getting into fucking trouble, dude. I was getting into trouble, man. I made the decision for me. I'd have college money if I needed it. And, you know, I was really into, I watched Black Hawk Down every day of my life. I was into war movies and shit. And I was like, you know, this is what I want to do, at least for now. But you're welcome. You're welcome, man. Yeah, it all depends on what you're running. Usually it's 25 milligrams per click. If it's 100 milligrams per milliliter, 4 clicks is 100 milligrams. It all depends on the concentration of the cream you have, dude. How many milligrams per milliliter? Usually an entire 4 clicks is a milliliter. Yep. Yep. Guys, as I said, the whole pricing structure on coaching is changing this week. The 50% discount that we have run and has been good to us and good to people is ending at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time Sunday, so that's tomorrow. This coupon code is set to stop working tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. So you still have an opportunity to do all the coaching packages as they are now because they're changing and the prices are changing as well, for 50% off for another day. Same thing with Mastering Testosterone Cream, Mastering Testosterone Cypionate, and Sourceless. They're all 50% off still for another day and a half. But the cream course is going back to its actual original price, not the introductory product launch price. of 127, so will mastering testosterone cypionate. Sources will say the same. I'm going to introduce a variety of new products, so please look forward to those things. But right now, you've got one more chance on this 50%. So if you need to pull the trigger, that's the code. Go get it done, brothers. Get it done, brothers. Get it done and forever hold your peace. Forever hold your peace, brother. Because we're not going to run 50% for at least another 6 months to a year. You know, I'll do them very sparingly. You know, it just so happened that this time I kind of wanted to do it, and it was really great for everybody, and it worked out. If I switch from the daily Test C and go to cream, should I switch next day or wait a week? Well, if you're having estrogen problems, you should wait a week. And you might feel like shit in that week when test is dropping and stuff, but you want to get a head start if you can, if your body can tolerate that. Get a head start on the reduction of estradiol. And the only way you'll do that is you just don't inject for a week. And then you put on the cream, and like that day, you're going to start feeling better. Just know if you're suffering in that week, okay, you're lowering the estrogen, that's a good thing. The moment you start the cream, you'll feel better. Try to let that allow you to get through it, because you will feel better when you start that cream, man. Let's speaking really, really quickly. What if a person has fluid mineral retention from digestive motility or stomach problems with top reference range values for most hormones, but has specific issues to issues specific to aldosterone? So what you're saying is that your digestive issues are making you have entirely too much aldosterone, which would cause you to retain salt specifically, and thus water. I'm unclear on the mechanism by which digestive issues cause elevated aldosterone. Could you explain that mechanism? Yeah. Because, it's all carbohydrates. They increase aldosterone. Estrogen increases aldosterone and antidiuretic hormone. Do you have high antidiuretic hormone as well? That's hormonally induced, and usually. But if you have mineral retention, you've got to find the cause of that. I am unaware of a mechanism by which, lower end intestinal motility, the speed with which you move food along through the intestines, causes an increase in aldosterone. I mean, do you have gastroparesis or something where you just have delayed stomach emptying and that's somehow causing a problem? I'm unaware of that mechanism. What to do, though, in what context? Regarding TRT, you got to be careful. And, you probably have to look at using diuretics. But talk to a doctor about that. Dream Chaser, how do you want me to lay out super chat about sleep insomnia and androgen threshold? I think I have while adding Master on. Well, I don't think you need to super chat it, man. To be perfectly honest with you, I think you're just on the wrong protocol. You're on the wrong protocol. Like, Masteron gets your libido back, but it causes sleep problems. If you make a change to a TRT protocol and it fixes one problem and introduces another, it's the wrong protocol. It's the wrong protocol. Yeah, I mean, it's like you seem to be over aromatizing, or you're in a place where you need Masteron to get the libido where it needs to be, or you're just under converting to DHT. If I were you, because I think you're on prop, right? If I were you, I would try cream. I would try test cream. That's what I would do if I were you, man. Cream is why cream is so good is because it gives you, if you dial it in correctly, the exact thing that we all need on TRT, which is the right ratio of DHT to estrogen. If you're applying it to the scrotum, you then have, because of all these, it's just a 5-AR rich site on your body. You have more DHT, and tests can only convert to two things, DHT and estrogen. So, I mean, if you're converting more to DHT, you're going to have less estrogen. Cream is like the opposite of finasteride. Finasteride makes you convert more of your tests to fucking estrogen and less to DHT. Cream makes you convert more of your tests to DHT and less to estrogen. I know it would induce hair loss for people that already have the MPB gene and they're already losing their hair, so they go on finasteride. But honestly, if I could stop everybody from going on finasteride when that problem arises, I would do it with the clause that you're probably going to lose hair, but you're playing Russian roulette with your sexual function and thus your life by blocking DHT. If I could tell people before they're doing finasteride, just take test cream instead, or do nothing, leave it alone, I would do it. I would do it. I've seen a lot of guys' lives fucking ruined. No, I've already explained this before, so go watch either the last live stream, last Saturday's live stream or the live stream before. Listen, 200 milligram cream versus 100 milligram cream is going to peak higher faster. It's a higher density. It's 20% versus 10%. It's going to peak higher faster than the 100 milligram cream because it's more at once. It is not different, or it is not the same. It is different. Incredibally, hello, brother. How are you? Nice weekend. Please advise. Recent bloods on. Finish the question, brother. But yeah, I mean, if you've got some sort of question regarding TRT, testosterone crazy high, 117, which is 3,000. Well, what's the dose? What's the dose, man? Can't help you if I don't know the details. How would I be able to help you if I don't know the details, dude? How? How, brother? How? How? How, brother? How, dude? How am I going to help if I don't know the details, dude? How? Am I going to help? How, though? How, brother? I don't know what you guys are up to this weekend, but I'm going to be going to the Christmas Village in Pittsburgh. It's like, this setup where they've got huts, little brown huts, and a Christmassy kind of thing, a lot of Christmas decorations and shit, and each of the huts has vendors that sell stuff, and me and my girlfriend Jill are going to go and walk around and have a good time and just get the Christmas spirity thing. It's, last year I wasn't with Jill. I was alone. And I remember being at the Christmas Village, like seeing couples together. And I was like, fuck, this sucks. Happy couples. And I'm out there in the city by myself, hanging out, going to restaurants. And look, I was a happy guy as a single person, but I was lonely. I was certainly lonely. So I'm happy to have her, and we're going to be doing that sometime this weekend, and I'm pumped. Clarification: body and mind very functional with estrogen levels of 30 to 35, but seems to cause mineral fluid retention issues. How can you net the positives of this range without the side effects? Net the positives of this range without the side effects. And what does body and mind mean? Body and mind very functional. Libido erections, estrogen 30 to 35. That shouldn't cause that much fluid and mineral retention unless you're on TRT and that you just need to be at 20 picograms per milliliter. Yes. Yep. Maybe it is the digestion problem, but you've got to find a mechanism for that and not just guess. Cranked up to 30 milligrams daily test prop. So 210. Yeah, 210. I used finasteride a year ago and have secondary hypergonadism. Brother, I do not know what you are saying here. Well, I mean, if you took finasteride and you're on TRT and your test is higher than it should be, it's because it ultimately makes you make, more testosterone, you end up having more testosterone because less gets converted to DHT, more to estradiol, but then that other stuff that would go to DHT, some of it's going to estrogen and the other of it's just staying as testosterone. So you typically end up with higher end testosterone levels, which is not helping your sexual function. Optimal time to get labs for test cream peak 6 to 7 hours. If you want to see DHT, 6 hours. Yeah. If you want to see DHT at the peak, 6 hours. Generally, it would be totally fine to test the testosterone at the 6 hour point too. It's not going to be quite the peak. It may be though. It's variable for people. You want to get peak and trough though, so that okay, am I getting a break in aromatization? Do I at 9 o'clock the next day or 7 o'clock in the morning the next morning before I apply the test, is estrogen lower than what it was when at peak, 6-7 hours post application? Then you have a gauge for if you should change your dose or not. Appreciate you, Ryan. How'd you meet your girl? We met online as people do these days, and then we went out to dinner on a snowy day in January, and we had a great time. You know, instantly I knew with her that she was cool. I had dated for like 3 years. I mean, on and off, but you know, there was a period where I was dating pretty heavily, and I could never really vibe with a woman. You know, my kind of woman is a soft-spoken, gentle, feminine woman, you know, who's also highly intelligent but has wit and confidence and, you know, a strong personality, like a strong person. And Jill is all those things. So I kind of instantly knew that we would hit it off. Now, in that time, I was not focused on having a relationship. I didn't want one because I'd had a pretty brutal ending to my last one, you know, years back. And I just wasn't interested in having that, although I did miss some aspects of it, like doing things together around Christmas and whatever. But, you know, as my wise aunt once said to me, and as I'm sure people have heard before, you will never know when love comes along. And it is going to come when you don't expect it, as cliche as that sounds. And it is. It does. You won't be looking for it. You know, you're not going to necessarily be trying for it, although you could be trying for it. It's not going to come when you want it. It will just happen naturally. I mean, after mere weeks of being with her, I was excited to see her. I mean, from the gate, I was excited to see her. But after mere weeks, I was starting to feel like I feel much more than, you know, this is just a sex partner. You know, like we would have sex and cuddle. And then it was like she was snuggly too, like, which is fucking awesome. Emotionally mature and all those kinds of things. And so it was just, I was very, very much in love with her early, and quickly. And after, 3 months, we became exclusive, and we've gone through a lot. You know, her life is complicated. Life is complicated. Life is just complicated. You know, we have evolved into a very, very good couple. We always were, but like we've been through a lot of like individual shit like that we were dealing with in our lives that we dealt with together. We were each other's confidants. You know, we help each other through stuff. I'll be with Jill for the rest of my life if I can help it. Megatron, I tried to give a testimony for your coach service on the Reddit PFS page and got banned in 10 minutes. Of course you did. Yeah, those people just, the forums are filled with toxicity, man. I used to even take part in trying to respond if people were talking shit on me or saying shit that wasn't true. Like, I had people that were never clients of mine post negative shit about me. And I used to go in there and try to be like, no, wait, like, I don't even, you were never a client or this never happened. It's just futile. You know, if people don't recognize who I am from content that we do, it's okay. My DHT sit in the 50s. In your experience, is adding 1 drop of 1 milligram DHT gel every third day normally get guys at 75 range. It will likely get you a little higher than that, but you're going to have to see for yourself. It will absolutely get you up there. Definitely. Like, it will increase the DHT a good bit. Yeah. Yep. I mean, I don't know where was it 221 nanograms per deciliter is what I want to say. And I did 3 drops of 20% gel every other day. My hair was fucking starting to fall out of my head though. And it was a little too much DHT. That shit's powerful. You know, that again, like the 20% stuff it may be necessary. You just drop a milligram or just drop a drop rather on the scrotum every other day of the 20% stuff, maybe every third day. But if you want more control over it, just dilute it with more MCT oil to the point where you get a milligram per drop. Milligram per drop. That's kind of the best way to dose the stuff. All right, boys, I'm going to end the stream. Great fucking questions. Content this week. And then, of course, Christmas break, I'll be gone. I'm traveling back home to see family. So, you know, we'll be back like later on in late month December, but ultimately the new year is just all the changes in coaching, products, a bunch new content. So please look forward to that. Again, this is the last chance for 50% off. That ends, as you see here, that coupon code will terminate at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. That is Sunday. So it's going bye-bye. Everything right now still is 50% off, and the current coaching stuff is still there, and we will honor those. If you book, we'll honor the current coaching packages, but everything's changing as of this coming week. So look forward to that. Take advantage of the discount if you can. And Kick-Ass Rock On, thanks for the questions. I really enjoyed this time with you guys. Much more to come. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Peace.